Get your pad and pens out, everybody. This is going to be super powerful. Do you find that your kids trigger you? Like, is there something that they do, a behavior that they do that just makes you like kind of sends chills and you just like snap? And I know that you don't feel good when you do that. So, Sharne Patel is a conscious parenting coach. She is going to share incredible wisdom and insight into what those triggers are and what you can do about them, where they're coming from, like deep within the work that we need to do in order to become our best parents. My name is Dale Ecuyer, and I love helping families create health and harmony using holistic mental wellness solutions, as well as this conscious parenting is powerful stuff. And the inner child work is so powerful. Thank you, Sharne, for being with me here today. So tell us, what is this about? Like all of us are triggered, like certain things, right? Is it
Yeah.
is it the certain thing, or is it just being triggered in general? I think.
Well, I think, it's being triggered in general. Any triggers at all, in fact, I would say are pointing at something within us that needs our attention, is pointing at something within us that's been left unprocessed, unhealed. And it's calling upon us to go inwards and really ask, what is that? What is this thing that my child is doing, or my partner, whoever, really? We particularly find that we're triggered in the parent-child relationship because it's namely one where culture and society set us up to think that we need to be heard in that relationship in a big way. And when we're not heard, it can kind of remind us of that powerlessness from childhood when we wasn't heard. So it can kind of link back to those times where we felt powerless in childhood and we wasn't heard by our own parents, or some other event within us that's poking at a deeper wound within us that we need to look at. And that's really what's happening when our kids are triggering us. They're calling us to look at the unhealed child within us.
Wow. So let's give an example. Like, let's say you have a child who is not listening,
Mm-hmm.
like they're just not listening. What that again is going to come back to that you were not heard, perhaps, right?
Yeah, like
If this is an overreaction to that.
yeah, exactly. So it would depend on the context. So if you're looking at a child who's not listening to you and you feel your reaction is bigger than what it should be to that, like, you find yourself spilling into an overreaction when your child's not listening to you, you find yourself snapping, you find yourself feeling anger coming up within you, rising. If there is a overreaction on the surface, or a sensation in your body that's quite impactful, more than you would expect on the average, then you might say, oh, hold on, I think there's something else that this is connected to. So I use not listening as a common one because often this is the one that triggers us, because often in childhood, what would happen is our parents would want us to follow a very set way of being. Even culture dictates we need to be a certain way or be this way. And that way of being was sometimes projected onto us by our own parents. And when that was put onto us, we didn't feel heard. We wanted to do things our way with our own autonomy. And when I say doing things our way, that doesn't mean without boundaries, because a lot of people think, well, kids need boundaries. Yeah, of course, they definitely need boundaries. They need a bedtime. They need all those things. They need structure. But within that, they need autonomy. And sometimes, let's say you had a parent that was really achievement based, for example, they may have said, you need to make sure you study this much, right? And then in that, the child may have lost some of their authenticity and what they wanted to do, what subject they may have been interested in, or something like that. So this is like a small example of how we can lose our authenticity in childhood or not feel heard by our parents in what we want to be and do and think. So in this way, this mirrors when our actual child today is not hearing us, it mirrors this dynamic. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's so interesting. So I mean, we tend to fall back on how we were parented. Of course, because that's what we know, right? But then when it doesn't feel right, and I think there's so much more awareness as to maybe this is not the right way. So how do you catch yourself? Like, how do you change the pattern that has been created? And I think you talked about it as being called like the conditioning that we know, right? How we were conditioned.
Yeah, so conditioning is kind of like a set of ideas of how we should behave, set of this is what a good child looks like. So when our child doesn't meet that, that's usually when we trigger. But to answer your question about how do we create that pause, that's a great question, because there's a lot that goes into that pause. And I call that pause the conscious pause. That's what I call it, the conscious pause. And a lot of people are like, count to 10 or, take a breath. But it's just not that easy when that pause in itself, that conscious pause, it has a lot of nuances within it that we need to address before we're truly able to pause. So within that, so if you're asking me, how do I get calm, Sharne? How do I deal with these triggers?
Mhm.
So that pause within that, you need to look at regulating your nervous system, because this is a huge part of getting calm, right? And we can't get calm without working with the nervous system and with the body, okay? Because it's 80% body that sends the signal to trigger us. It's in the body, the reaction.
Mhm.
What does that really mean? So, for example, our body has been shaped to react a certain way by our past experiences, and that shaping kind of gets stored in our nervous system. And our nervous system says, "Oh, I've had this similar feeling before," and then it might go into fight. That's when you start controlling the child or shouting at the child
Mhm.
or whoever is triggering that thing within you, that same sensation. Or it goes into flight. You want to run, get away from the kids, right? Get away from everyone. Or you go into, at low level, when you've gone through, you go through dorsal, which is a complete retraction and a kind of going inwards, and more of a down feeling. So these are the three states that come from the nervous system, and we need to know which state has been triggered. And to know that, we need to know our own unique states very well and what seems to take us into that state. When you know that, you then need to have regulation tools that work with your unique nervous system. So that could be a number of different things depending on what works for you. So there's specific things that kind of activate, without going too much into the science. There's something that kind of activates something called the vagus nerve, which is the bit that calms you down. So really, part of creating a conscious pause is to get calm with our kids is activating that vagus nerve. We can do that with certain breathing exercises, but lots of other things that work uniquely for you. So you need to work with someone to see, what is it that works for me? So there's things that you can do even with your eyesight to trick yourself into out of, I'm not in that past feeling anymore. I'm here in the now. So that's one part, is the working with the nervous system.
So I want to go back a little bit.
Yeah.
So really it's identifying what the triggers are,
Mhm.
so maybe writing it down. When my child does this, I feel this. So
Mhm.
starting to really kind of like analyzing where that's coming from.
Yeah.
And typically it's going to go back to a childhood wound or conditioning, like you say, like this is the way my parents did it. So that's the way I should be doing it, but it's not happening that way. And like the control aspect. But I
Mhm.
feel like our kids are there to teach us these things, like to point, to shine the light on the things that we need to heal and figure out what's going on here. But I know we're kind of like going off on a bunch of tangents here. So let's try to bring it back to more of like how you discover, like how you find where that root is. Like maybe the
Mhm.
like control, but I think that's a good one when we talk about our kids are not listening, like and we start to go into this place where we try to control them.
Mm.
'Cause
Mm.
control is like a big one. I think a lot of parents don't understand, like, can't control this kid. Like, where
Mm.
can you go a little deeper into the control aspects of
Yeah,
that?
I mean, first of all, the aim should never be to control the child in conscious parenting. It's not ever about control. So the idea is to release the idea that the child needs to be controlled, but instead
Mm,
we're looking at it from the point of view that we're there as a guide for the child, just
okay.
as a guide, and to create the optimum environment for the child so that they can flourish and show us their own personal best, whatever that is. So straight away is to release the idea that I need control over the child. That's the first thing, is to release that idea. If you do find yourself controlling, I would look within to say, what am I scared of? Ask yourself that question. What am I scared of in this situation right now? Because 99% of the time, we are controlling due to a fear within us. We're either scared the child isn't going to do well at school. Maybe we didn't do well at school. And what did that mean for us? Right? Or we're scared the child is going to be rude, impolite, disrespectful, never have any friends. So you see, all these fears start coming up. So I would ask, what are you scared of? first of all, number one. Then two, I would link that back to your own experience. Has this got anything to do with you? Is this really about the child in front of you? Or is this something that comes from your own fear system, your own experience? So our fears do come from our own experience of life. And sometimes they can be coming into our view of the child, and we project those fears thinking, oh my God, like they didn't do their homework for one night. And suddenly we might be going somewhere else because of our own fears. Then we go into control. So this is where control commonly comes from, a root fear. So I would ask, what is that fear? And then look at how you can work with that fear to say, is this something within me? Is this a fear that I had within me? And if it is, that means it's been left unprocessed in you. So you'd need to then go back and process that fear.
I love it. I mean, it's such a deep topic, like, and I know you are just like have so much knowledge because I have worked with you personally and you have helped me in many ways. And I love you for that. And I'm learning all this as well. And still kind of even going back and parenting some of my own kids, like still learning. It's crazy.
Yeah,
Like,
it's a constant learning journey.
it's constant. And it goes right into obviously our relationship with the other people in our lives. You know, all of this, it really is about our relationship to ourselves, becoming aware of our own triggers, right? Our own pain, healing that as adults. And then you can be the best parent, you know, you can be if you can heal yourself first. So, and I know parents feel terrible when they're impatient with their kids and all that kind of thing. So
yeah, I get that. You can feel terrible, but I always say embrace that terrible feeling or that guilt feeling because it can be the thing that invokes the change within you. Sometimes we can let it get us down, but actually pain can be like the most powerful portal to heal us. It can be the most powerful way to open up that path to the patience that you want to have with your kid, because once you clear out that residual anger, that residual anxiety that's stored from another experience, you can arrive for the child that you actually have in front of you. You can arrive in the present, take each moment as it comes, just parent from this present moment without the fears of the future, what my child is going to turn out like, or the past, which is a tall order sometimes. That's why conscious parenting is a journey.
I would definitely encourage you to go and tell us about your group.
I have a group online. It's called Conscious Parenting and Relationships. And I go into more of these concepts in more detail there, where you can really look at, am I showing up as the parent that I want to be? Am I showing up in the present as my present day self? Is there some stored trauma or some stored anxiety, anger that I need to release, some patterns within me?
We want harmony in the home, right? We all want that beautiful connection with our child and with the people in our lives. And Sharné can help you uncover the things that need to heal within you before you can really become your best to the people in your lives. That's how I see it. So thank you so much for being with me here today. And I think we'll
You're welcome.
And start doing some more.
Yes, definitely.
All right. Awesome. Thanks for joining us. See you again.